Well, the late, truly inspirational Kerry teenager Donal Walsh, whose funeral is taking place tomorrow in Tralee, put the issue of suicide on the agenda when he urged people considering suicide to seek help as he battled with his own diagnosis of terminal cancer. In a moment, we'll be discussing mental health and suicide with Bressie, Minister Kathleen Lynch, Professor Jim Lucy and our audience. First, though, Aoife Hegarty has been to Kerry to meet families and communities who've been affected by Ireland's rising rate of suicide.
Suicide knows no boundaries. It doesn't recognise age, it doesn't recognise gender, it doesn't recognise wealth. And it could happen to anyone.
It was just completely out of the blue. We had no knowledge that there was anything at all wrong. And that's the scary thing about it.
This time next week, 10 more people will die by suicide, and 8 of them will be men.
When Tralee teenager Donal Walsh came to prominence last month, his public appeal to young people not to end their lives prematurely touched the hearts of many.
I just didn't want them to see suicide as a solution to any of life's problems. If I'm meant to be a symbol for people to appreciate life, it mightn't be just suicide in particular, but just to appreciate life more in general, then I'll be happy to die if that's what I'm dying for. But
news this week that Donal lost his battle to cancer has again brought the spotlight down on his plea. Sentiments echoed recently by Coroner for South and East Kerry, Terence Casey.
For the last 2 sittings of inquests I've had here, the majority of my cases have been suicide. The last sitting here I had 6 cases, 5 of which were suicide, 2 16-year-olds. The previous sitting, I think out of 8 cases I had listed, 7 were suicide.
County Kerry has one of the highest rates of death by suicide in the country, and for many people here in Tralee, it's been no stranger to their doors. Like Moira and John O'Sullivan, whose son Alan died by suicide just over 3.5 years ago, when he was only 21 years old. While the family is coming to terms with the tragedy, their lives have been ripped apart by his death.
It was devastating. You know, I used to always call him my little lad. Because he was the baby of the boys. You know, and I would miss him so much, you know. You know, as a mother, I hope any mother out there listening to me that they don't have to experience, go through what I went through as a mother, to bury your own child. You know, it's not normal.
We just never envisaged this happening. There is no way you can think about it in that sort of a sense. You can't imagine that your son or your daughter or your father or your mother or your brother or your sister is going to do it.
There's Tara. The baby, the family, she was only 17. She took it extremely, extremely hard.
He always minded me, and if I was at my friend's house, I could just pick up the phone and he'd come straight for me and he'd drop what he was doing, and we got on so well. It was more of a best friendship than anything. I told him all my secrets and stuff so. I didn't want to visit the grave for a long time. I blocked it out for ages and I didn't want to think he was gone. And my mum plants flowers there the whole time. She always makes sure it's nice and it's okay for him, and she finds great comfort in that. I've learned to talk about it because I find that if you talk about it, that it gets better. It will never be okay, but it gets better and it gets easier.
Just half an hour away in Listowel, Cora and Martin O'Brien have also lost their son to suicide. David was only 17 years old when he died in 2007.
Sure, he was a great young fella, you know. He was the life and soul of around the place. Just a very good, honest, going kid, you know.
David was in Leaving Cert year in St Michael's College. He was studying for his Leaving Cert. He had filled out his CEO form. He was hoping to go on to do PE in Limerick. He held down 2 jobs, so he was well able to work, and not frightened to work. And really, we don't know what happened. The 5th of December 2007, he just took his own life.
I suppose the main effect was just pure devastation and heartbreak and everything. It's impossible to describe how you can be so lonely and end up in a place like it's just like a big dark hole is after swallowing you. You can't. It's impossible to describe. You wouldn't want nobody to understand it really and truly, because you just wouldn't want anybody to be there.
The effect that it had on our other 2 children was they were completely devastated. Heartbreak. Complete heartbreak. They couldn't understand it. So. Yeah, their whole world had fallen apart. They couldn't understand it, we couldn't understand it. It was very difficult to tell them that their brother had died, and it was more difficult to tell them how he had died.
The most recent complete statistics available show that 525 people died by suicide in Ireland in 2011. 439 male and 86 female. In County Kerry that year, 26 people died by suicide, 18 male and 8 female. But that figure marks a stark increase, rising sharply over a 5-year period from 12 deaths in 2007.
When I'm sitting at an inquest, I'm facing the families, and you will see grief, mourning, sorrow, people crying out for questions, people blaming themselves, the pain and the suffering you can see in their faces, and the amount of weeping that goes on is unbelievable. It's a horrific scene.
Suicide affects everyone. There isn't probably a person in the country that hasn't been affected by suicide at some stage in their life.
That's the true picture witnessed by staff at the Suicide and Self-Harm Centre Pieta House every day.
Kerry, it's terrible, but it's not unique. We could nearly echo this right across the country.
Recent figures from Pieta House show that in 2012 there was a 42% increase in the number of people seeking their help for suicidal ideation and self-harming behaviour. The charity was contacted by over 2,700 clients last year across its 5 centres in Dublin and Limerick, compared with just over 1,900 people in 2011. But increasingly the need to intervene at an early age is being recognised. That's exactly the focus of groups like Kerry Life Skills. They work with primary and secondary school children, developing areas such as life choices, self-esteem and mental health awareness.
It's about helping them figure out what are the skills that they already have and how can they develop that they can create a life that's meaningful for them, that they can realise their potential, that they can deal with what life throws at them and they can grow from it. Life is a lot more complicated now than it may have been in the past, and they meet it bravely. But they need to know that they're brave. They need to hear that they can manage this, that they can cope.
And learning to cope is exactly what optician Roger Harty from Tralee has done. Roger struggled with mental illness for several years.
About 7 or 8 years ago, I had some stresses in my life, and I went into a deep depression. And it all just got too much for me at the time, and I ended up going to St. Pat's Psychiatric Hospital. I just felt that life was over, and I felt soulless, so I had to begin to look at changes in my life.
And Roger did recover, and he says he's proof that you can overcome the difficult days.
The message I can have is that as long as you can breathe, you can recover, and that there is great hope. And I've been there, I know what it's like, and that there is a way.
There is help out there, go and get the help. Don't be just another number and a statistic of a person that has died by suicide.
young people, especially under 18, their brain is still developing. They've no concept of the finality or fatality of suicide. They do not realise it is forever.
What needs to be done is we need government help. We need to set up some force like the road safety force that have done massive work in reducing road deaths to let people know there is a solution and that suicide is not one.
My favourite quote is, "It's okay not to be okay," and I think people need to realise that, and if they're feeling depressed or suicidal, that they need to talk about it and just not to put their families through what my brother did to us.